not going to be here. I'm hoping Greg and Victoria will be here.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but we need a certain number of people present to actually hold the meeting. Is that right?
Yes.
Correct.
Okay,
Majority, 50% plus one.
understood.
So there's currently 5 people on the board, right? Not counting the 2 new members that start in January, is that right?
I have to open up the sheet. I have my, I think there's an old sheet around. I was trying to update it to put all the new appointments and stuff on.
Well, there's currently 6.
Yeah.
So we need,
Technically, today is Charlie's last meeting, but if she resigned, then I'd say you have 5, so you need at least 3.
well, there we go. One more.
You said Kim's not going to be here?
Yeah, she's not going to be here.
I know Mary just asked me for the link, so she should be getting on too, but she's not part of the quorum.
No.
I can contact Greg to see if he'll be attending.
We just saw him Monday, guys, at the council meeting. I thought he was going to be here. Well, we had a couple more minutes before we start. Be nice to get a quorum.
Greg's here.
There's
Ah,
Greg.
All right. Bingo.
Brenna, I'm going to make you host.
Agreed.
Merry weekend.
Oh,
Hey, Kathy.
Bye. Thank you.
Kathy.
Mary's coming in, counselor.
Oh, there's Mary. Let's give it a couple more minutes to see if Victoria shows up.
Hello, Councilor Baumgartner.
Hey, Mary.
Welcome aboard, Mary.
Hi, I'm sorry. I didn't realize you guys were on. Usually it opens right up if the meeting's actually going. And it just said, it had a button that said start the meeting, which was weird because, so I'm sorry. I was just sitting here. Technology.
Yes. Wonderful. Hey, Victoria, one more minute and then we'll crank it up. So is the moss growing well at everybody's house?
Yes, I love moss. I cultivate it.
I use it on my bonsai, so I like to see the moss growing around. Okay, well, why don't we go ahead and get started? So it is the December 16th, 2021 meeting of the Sustainability Advisory Board at 6:05. So the first item would be to approve the minutes. Has everyone had a chance to look them over? If you got any additions?
Yes.
Okay. Would there a motion to approve the minutes as they stand?
I move that we approve the minutes as they stand.
Okay. And move to approve the minutes as they stand. All in favor? All opposed? That was a tough one. Okay, the minutes are good. Great. There's no one from the public here, so there's no public comment. So why don't we just jump into the check-ins and see who's been doing what. So on my screen, Brenna is first, so let's jump in, Brenna.
Yes, hi. Yeah, it's been a while, I think, since we've all, or at least I've participated and connected with all of you here, in this capacity. Yeah, it's been a busy couple of weeks and just trying to get acclimated, and Jerry and I are softly transitioning myself to become the staff liaison for the group. So just trying to get up to speed with all of those responsibilities. And I've had a couple of meetings with Clackamas County in regards to their climate action plan and some PGE stuff. So good things. I will save that all reporting, I guess, for the staff liaison section. But yeah, just continuing to onboard and heading into another Pacific Northwest winter, and yeah, looking forward to the holidays. Terry, do you prefer if I just bunt it to somebody? Or would you like to call on someone?
I think you're muted, Terry, but I think suppose I could go next if that's all right.
Yes.
When I type and make notes, I try to mute myself, but I often forget. So old timers disease. Thanks, Mike.
You bet. So yeah, I guess the first thing to say is I received my first acceptance letter this morning for one of the 2 graduate programs that I applied to. So Penn State let me in. They've got a renewable energy and sustainability master's program. So waiting to hear back from Arizona State and feeling hopeful. I've also been spending more time than I'd like to admit trying to fix my holiday lights so I don't have to buy new ones. I've got a pile of lights over here, and I've probably replaced 150 bulbs individually because I don't want to buy new ones. I feel that's wasteful. So in that same vein, we've been looking for other ways to kind of celebrate the upcoming holidays in a bit more sustainable fashion. We don't really like the big garbage bag full of wrapping paper that we end up with at the end of the day. So my wife found these like decorative fabrics that you can just like wrap presents in and tie them off and use it again next year. I think they're called, got it written down here, furoshiki. So got a handful of those, and we're trying to wrap everything without being wasteful. And I was also happy to see the presentation of the SAB's recommendations for the CDC updates on this Monday's council meeting.
Great. Thanks, Mike.
Thank you.
Okay. Greg, go for it.
Sure. Wanted to thank Brenna for a great conversation on Friday when we had a chance to meet and talk about the neighborhood resilience teams, and feel really encouraged by your experience and just your experience with resilience in the community that you worked in Oakland. So feeling you have a lot to bring to West Linn. So really grateful for that. I sent you all just a list of questions from Paul Hawkins' new book, Regeneration, Ending the Climate Crisis in One Generation. If you haven't picked it up, it's worth checking out. It's like an extension of Drawdown, the book that he wrote, I think in 2018. I'm actually giving it to all my sons, just to kind of encourage them to think about ways in which they can potentially integrate some of these perspectives and the work into their own careers. So I think that there's tremendous opportunities if you think about like business and entrepreneurialism for the kind of model that he presents. So it's I think has a lot to potentially teach us. And the minutes reminded me that I hadn't gotten back to folks about whether people were interested in trying to have a conversation about the speech that Dennis Meadows had given at the Smithsonian. But if folks are interested in that, let me know, and I will send out just a questionnaire about possible times.
Great, thanks, Greg. Yeah, I appreciated those questions, and I may use those in an upcoming article.
Yeah.
Those are great. Mary.
Thank you. Is Kim not being able to make it tonight?
Correct, she won't be here. She
Oh.
told us beforehand she wouldn't be able to make it.
Oh, I must have missed that. I am just super excited, honestly, about people talking about changes that we need to all be making, but it's in the conversation now. And I mean, this is a big change from just when I started getting involved in climate activism barely 3 years ago. You would turn on the news and no one was talking about the climate. No one. I mean, only like a small echo chamber of people were talking about it. And now it's everywhere. So I'm excited, and I'm interested in that book, Greg.
Good.
I was really super proud, not that I have a right to be proud. I'm not the parent of this SAB, but being up on council and listening to the SAB present the CDC proposal and just having that whole conversation made me really excited that we can make changes and we can work together. And there are just amazing opportunities when there's a giant shift happening like this. There's all kinds of opportunities. So I'm really excited. So sorry for that little gush.
No, sorry.
Gosh, good.
I
Okay,
kind of felt the same way. I was like being the cheerleader in the background. Yay.
It was awesome.
Mhm.
Thank you guys for all of your hard work. Honestly, I mean, really, it's an amazing amount of work. So I really appreciate it.
well, thanks, Mary, and thanks to everyone. Because I think we're at a critical juncture right now. I actually wrote some notes down, so please excuse me if I read a few things, but I think I really wanted to say this, which is basically a thanks to the members of the Sustainability Advisory Board for putting together the CDC improvements proposal. As you know, Kim and I presented to council Monday, and it was met with unanimous approval, which to me means that, well, city staff is now going to be charged with evaluating potential changes to CDC, building permit process, municipal codes, and city policy. So really, I'm heartened by the work of this group, and I really do feel positive about the support we seem to now have from city council. I feel it has been a change, and I kind of want to echo your words, Mary, but it's it's a small step in achieving our goal, working ourselves out of a job. You know, it would be great if the Sustainability Advisory Board worked themselves out of a job and what we do became foundational within city government. I know it's a pipe dream, but you know, we've got to have dreams. I've seen the evolution of city government to one that sees sustainability and resilience as the foundation of everything the city does. It's a laudable goal, and I really appreciate the fact that's what we're working for. And we've got 2 new members coming aboard in January, and my initial communication with them indicates that they could bring some additional energy and commitment to our group. And thinking about our group, I feel very positive about the variety of experience, interest, and energy in our current members. In addition to the obvious, genuine concern we all seem to have for our environment, we all have specific areas of expertise. Victoria brings a love of plants, gardening, native flora. Greg is very strong in climate change and neighborhood resilience. Mike contributes engineering background to energy and solar. Kim's environmental consulting and municipal operations skills provide grounded details of reality to help pull us all together. And I'm just really excited about the work we've already done and know that we've just primed the pump and we just need to keep on pumping. I think the positive actions from this group is going to help make our community thrive in the years to come. So once again, a big thanks to you all. And so let's roll up our sleeves because I think we're just getting rolling. So with that, I want to be positive, folks. I really do. Okay, moving right along, the Sustainability Education Series update. Mike just communicated to us that you had lassoed Chris Lamar into doing the fruit tree planting and care. Is that correct, Mike?
I did, yeah. I reached out to the master gardeners and they put me in touch with her. And the moment I started talking about fruit trees and the sustainability education series, she just basically said, "Well, I'm your person. I'm going to do it." And I was very grateful for that. She told me that she was interested in sharing a lot of excellent things that were specific to the selection of fruit trees that are appropriate for this area and for the care of those fruit trees that keep sustainability in mind. I think she's going to be an excellent presenter, much as she was during the series on composting. Excited to have her again.
Actually, Mike, Brennan and I were talking about just the potentiality of the city being more involved in creating food forests. Actually, a number of fruit trees were planted on the bike path down by Willamette Park 4 or 5 years ago,
Okay.
but they've been minimally cared for. And so I guess one question might be like, which fruit trees could be planted that would kind of require the least amount of attention? Might be a useful question for her to explore. I'd really be interested in knowing the answer to that, because caring for fruit trees is a major job, and I'm just not sure that the city, has the person power needed to really sustain a large number of fruit trees if that were to become part of like the vision of parks. But it would be wonderful. I know that in Seattle, a significant piece of public property about 8 or 9 years ago was devoted to a food forest. It would be kind of interesting to know what has happened with that.
Oh, that's very interesting.
Yeah.
And a principle in permaculture is to place items into your environment that aren't going to require care from you. I would certainly like to see something like that with fruit trees on the public spaces as well. We don't want the city to have to plant a set of trees with the long-term expense of caring for those in mind as well.
Right.
I had a super exciting brainstorm just that second. There's a teacher at Westland High School who does a permaculture class, and he's carved out basically a hillside that was covered with blackberries on the edge, kind of the bluff overlooking West A Street and that overpass. It's not a very nice land. But they would be one of the things that he shows his students is just urban gardening and in public spaces like this you're talking about. And I wonder if they're having that CTE high school, that this third option high school is going to be a CTE program, and there could be some kind of partnership with the city and sustainability and permaculture, regenerative agriculture, urban style program that the city would partner with the school. That would be really cool.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Is it Jeff Bingham who did the work with the gardens?
Yes.
Cool.
I think that's a great idea, and there could be also, you could throw some berries in there, like wild currants and things like that. So there could be something that if it's a presentation or a work that could be done with the school. We've also got our friends at Backyard Habitat Certification Program also providing stuff. So I like those ideas.
Uppenlander.
Yes, there you go. That'd be a good place to start doing some of that. You better believe it. If the citizens pass that levy, that would be great.
It's 10 acres.
Right for the picking, so to speak. Okay, is there any other, we've got January and February taken care of as far as presenters. I know Victoria and Mike had volunteered to work with community gardens for March. And
Terry, I have a few questions, just confirming dates, so I can get even just a placeholder on the city's calendar or something like that. But then also, I don't know when it may be appropriate to have Alex, ask Alex when is feasible for his schedule to put him back in.
Alex is a good friend of mine, so I will approach him about that. And what does the crew feel about, we've been doing the second Tuesday, 7 o'clock. We've kind of primed that pump, so to speak. Do you think we should keep that date and time?
See what
Every month at 7?
I don't see cause to change it.
Yeah. People are starting to get used to it, I hope.
Yeah. And then for January, it's far enough after the new year. It shouldn't be a
Yeah.
issue for people's holiday schedules to join. So
So Brenda, what I was wondering is, not critical for advertising purposes and putting on the SCB webpage, the education part page, listing the, January through May events, listing the title and the date right away. So they're up there now and we can fill in presenter stuff later. Do you think that's appropriate?
yeah. And it's sort of the industry practice for events. If you don't really know, if you don't have all your content fleshed out, at least get the save the date confirmed. So yeah,
Okay.
that'll at least get our sort of infrastructure around getting the registrations and calendar stuff updated, and then we can make tweaks to it as we go along.
Very good.
And as we publicize the one that I'm going to be doing in April, let's call it Neighborhood Resilience Teams. As I've talked about the name of it with different groups, I think the feeling was kind of avoid the contentiousness around, talking much about climate and just focus on resilience. Something that probably a broader population can agree on.
Yeah, we'd like as many people to participate as we can.
Yeah, exactly.
Alienate anybody right off the bat. If you folks have any other ideas about the titles of these topics, that maybe shorten them a little bit, let us know, and then we can get that to Brenna, get it up right away. We've got the topics through May. April was, Greg was working on that. May for the electric future, Kim and I were going to work and maybe get a couple of speakers for that. So, any other comments about the education series?
Maybe the only other thing to potentially think about, particularly as we kind of go into the summer, is water conservation and figuring out ways in which we can encourage people to kind of think about reducing their water use, but not having all of their plants die.
Like that. I know on the list for June, we really didn't have anything for June. We just did the first 5 months, but we had climate change seminars after May. And do you think we should look at having one in June that relates to water?
Maybe do that and then think about the climate for later. I think we basically need to see what's happening with COVID, because I think the climate seminars really, I think they would be best if they could be in person.
I agree.
Yep. Okay. Okay, so we plugged in then for June, something related to water conservation. Anybody right off the bat want to think about looking for a presenter, or should we all just cogitate on that for a while and see if we can come up with someone?
It might be difficult to line up somebody that far in advance that can commit to that.
Mm-hmm.
There might be some benefit to arranging that a little bit closer to the date.
Yeah, it doesn't hurt to plan.
I also am fairly integrated with the regional water providers. So I'm happy to reach out to them and see if either one of them or if they know an organization that would be well suited for presenting that topic, if that's okay with the group. I at least just thinking like we have an in somewhere.
Yeah, no, that's great.
Yeah, excellent.
And even thinking about like Lori at Bosque Dell, in terms of kind of acquainting people with native plants and being able to speak to which of those native plants are more drought resistant. And I know we've got all of this wood sorrel growing in our yard. It didn't like it this summer much at all, nor did our Douglas firs. So it's
How about somebody from the Clackamas River Watershed Council?
interesting. Yeah.
I think is what they're called. Do you know that, Brenna? Is that, are you familiar with them? I know some people who are connected there, so I could ask if that sounds like a good possibility.
Good.
Sure. And, there's nothing to prevent us from having a panel or a couple speakers on one topic.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Nice to get different perspectives. Okay. All right, well, that's good. We've got topics through June now. So, Brent, I think we should have something nice we can put up on the page. Nice little dates, times, and topics for now. Everybody okay with that?
Sounds good to me.
Wunderbar. Okay. Well, if we're done with that, we'll move on to item 6, which is, the Community Development Code's presentation to council, which happened Monday. I'm not sure what to say about that, other than it happened, and the yes vote was unanimous, which was great. So I appreciated the folks being there, either virtually or in person. Appreciated the support. And I was heartened, like I said, by the comments from council regarding that subject. And even Councillor Relier offered something we talked about as far as, the gas-driven leaf blowers and stuff like that, which I think is kind of on our docket. And as I said at the meeting, we did not want to overload council with too many things. I think the tree group thing was good, but I was pleased with the result. Now we just have to work with staff now to provide whatever the support we can to get some of those things done. Anybody have any comments about that presentation?
Yeah, I'd just like to echo what you said. I was pleased to see that council approved the recommendation to devote staff time to those CDC change recommendations unanimously, but also grateful to see that the reception of that proposal was quite enthusiastic. I think there were some thoughtful questions, and it was just good to see the council enthused about this idea. I appreciated that.
I was also struck by yours and Kim's comment after the presentation, Terry, that Darren had been so helpful in helping you clarify the best way to present it. So I think if we can work more closely with him, I think it would be helpful both in terms of finding strategies, but also, just sharing with him our concerns and our perspectives.
Yeah, I think it's very good to have those connections with the staff and the city who actually, where the rubber meets the road. And it was very helpful to get Darren's input. So I think that's we should, because Darren, used to be the staff liaison, so he's very familiar and I think he's very supportive. So yes, I agree, Greg. It's good to have those connections. We should maintain those connections. Okay, anything else for the good of the cause before we move on? Yeah, this could be a shorter meeting tonight, which is good, but it's a happy meeting. I love it. So if there's nothing else about that, item 7 is the baseline audits update. Is there anything to report on that, Mike or Brenna?
I believe last time we understood that PGE was trying to compile the data for the city, but I think that's where we left things.
Yes, so when I went to go look at the data from the customer perspective, there was a lot because there are meters tied to streetlights and water pumps and all kinds of sort of more ancillary tertiary utility usages. And I felt that we really wanted to focus on our building primary usage first. And so I gave them the specific addresses so they can go look at the meters associated with the addresses and get that data for us. The way it was organized in our user profile, it would have taken me way too long to try to pull those reports and then mesh them all back together in an Excel file. So I did receive an update from our account rep yesterday that he's still working on compiling the data. So hopefully we will get that soon. I did also want to touch base. I'm forgetting what the woman's title is, but essentially she is a liaison to city governments to provide some structured overall metrics and reporting, not only from a consumer as the city, but holistically, comparing residential users and commercial users broadly overall. And she has been trying to work with a few cities so that she can get some streamlined and structured data. So she's presenting those metrics consistently across the cities. So that way, you know, Milwaukee, Oregon City, they're not looking at different sets of comparators, that we would all be looking at the same type of comparators. So I've given her some top level information, just wanting to see, you know, how many consumers are using full renewable or, you know, that balanced mix across all of the different sectors, and a few other things. And I've asked her to tentatively pencil on her schedule to participate and present to this group probably in February, just so you have an understanding of what is capable. And then that way we can kind of tailor to what you would like to see, because I think that's going to be our biggest success. And then that would also sort of give us a better understanding of what our metrics are for improving. Whether that's, you know, starting a campaign to encourage more businesses in the city to transition to 100% renewable, or campaigns to promote for the residential consumer. We just kind of don't know yet. So I at least wanted her to holistically present to you all, so you can kind of flesh out what you would like to see, and then we can work together to assess where West Linn could be with that data.
Great.
Fantastic.
You said that this person, you didn't remember her name, she works for West Linn?
No, for PGE. Her
Okay.
name is Shanna, and I'm forgetting her last name. She's new to her role. So too, that's, you know, all of the cities are very diverse as well. So again, just trying to kind of get in, understand the company, understand all of the entities, the cities, etc. So she's definitely, she's very sharp and very, like, her heart is really into this work. But it's just kind of, as a new person, I totally understand. You're just trying to process and learn and just keep up with the learning every day. So.
Okay, great.
I'm curious, as far as the data that PGE is trying to compile. Do you know the time frame over which they're trying to gather that data?
Yeah, so we're going back to 2018 is what I've asked for from them.
Okay. Great. Thanks.
And with these audits, is it customary to primarily focus on energy, or is water, waste, fertilizer, et cetera, ever kind of incorporated in an audit like this? Brenna, you probably would be able to answer that question better than anybody.
Yeah, so we have the raw data for water. I don't necessarily know what we're doing next with this data. Jerry and I have also spoken with a vendor who can actually do some type of analysis comparing all of the data so that we understand where there's waste and where we could be more resilient. He is also able to do a vulnerability assessment vulnerability from a climate, but also natural hazards sort of perspective. So we're in the process of discussing with him what we would like to start first. But really, I think it's also just getting ourselves in a great place to fully understand what that PGE data looks like.
Yeah.
Is that pale blue dot? I believe Jerry worked with them formerly in his previous role.
Yes.
Okay, great.
Okay, well, that's great, Brennan, because the energy is an excellent place to start. And tagging along with the PGE, was there any discovery regarding the city supposedly signing on a couple of years to go to the 100% renewable? Has that been solved?
Yes, so what we've been advised is that program should start in the beginning of 2022. We don't yet have a tentative date. What that did was it allowed the city to receive a discounted rate for a set purchase of kilowatt hours. And then from there, anything beyond, we're also trying to understand, our purchasing, whether we purchase that additional in our current mix. We go to 100% mix. They're still also fleshing out the rates for that particular product as well, since there's a higher demand now from all companies and industries in the region. So we're also still waiting on that data so we have a cost analysis to move forward. Oh,
Can't hear you, Greg or Jerry.
Sorry, typing again and not looking. So what we thought the city had signed on to a couple of years ago really didn't happen. So now we have to wait for 2022 to restart that process.
So the program was supposed to start in 2021. And then as we know, COVID, and then we've had all of the also natural disasters in the meantime as well. So it just wasn't a great sort of fit to staff capacity, all of that. So that's why they're now projecting 2022. We should be starting, and I'm the same person I'm trying to get our utility data from is the same person I'm trying to get that official start date. So as soon as I have it, I will let you all know.
Okay. Very good.
Thank you.
Excellent. Any other discussion about baseline audits? Well, I must say though, from my point of view, Brenna, I really appreciate your work on this. I think it's gotten a toehold now with your work. I really appreciate it.
Yes, me too.
I think
Appreciate it.
action is being achieved. I really appreciate your work. Anything else for the good of the cause on the updates for baseline audit? Okay, so hopefully you all had a chance to, we'll go to item 8, the annual report to City Council, which Brenna also graciously spearheaded our revision of that document, and you all hopefully had a chance to look at it.
Mm-hmm.
It's draft form, and so is there any discussion of that, or comments or edits that you've got on that? Silence before the bar room. That's a good sign.
Yeah. Well, I'm pleased that you folks were able to do as much as you did, despite COVID.
Yeah. Well, Kim, Brennan, and I had a thrash out meeting a couple of weeks ago, I guess, and once again, Brennan's just jumping in feet first on this stuff. That's great.
Fantastic.
So
Thank goodness.
we kind of knocked this stuff out, and we made a couple of additional changes to it, but I personally think it's fairly complete unless anybody has got any comments or corrections. We did, you had a chance to look, there are 2 items under the feedback to share with the council. I mean, they're both regarding new members for the Sustainability Advisory Board, actually for citizen advisory groups. Currently, I don't think it's policy. I don't think that any members of an advisory group have any say in the review of new member applications or the selection. Mary, is that in fact true?
As far as I'm aware, I mean, with the exception, I guess, that certainly it has been the case that people maybe know somebody who they think would benefit a board or enjoy being on a board, and so they've recommended that that person apply. So there's been influence in that way, but the fact of the matter is actually the mayor creates the slate of the final kind of recommendations of who will be appointed, and then we discuss that. That's the way I understand it to be handled. Although I've only done this twice, and the first time we did it kind of differently, and I don't know if it's just because the mayor hadn't had a chance to refine her candidate list, but we all contributed, and we kind of made this spreadsheet that kind of could see, showed us who had voted for the same people, so that who had gotten the most votes from the most people, I guess, on the council. So we did it more of a consensus the first time, but this time we all were given the applications, and then the mayor presented us with her recommendations for all the positions. And I mean, there was discussion, and a couple of people shifted around for various reasons. So we didn't just say, take it all and approve it all. We discussed it, but I mean, are you interested in boards having a say? Is that what you're thinking?
Well, this has been bandied about in this group for several years now. We're just kind of curious as why there wasn't at least one member from an advisory board able to sit in on the discussions in the selection process. I'm wondering if that is an official policy, if so, why, and can it be changed? Like, you would think that a member of a current advisory board who's been on there for a couple of years might be a valuable resource to have on the selection.
Yes, I think that would certainly have merit. I don't honestly know why it's set up the way it is.
Yeah, I don't know if that's policy or
Yes, it is actually. It's in the, I'm not sure if it's in the charter or the council rules, but one or the other. I've seen it in writing where it says, and I could look it up if you want me
I just
to.
don't remember where it was.
I'll find it, and I can send the reference out to all of you just for your own curiosity. It's either in the council rules, which I've been recently rereading because we're going to have a kind of a council rules, I don't know, what do they call the retreat?
Yeah.
But it says that the mayor shall appoint or shall recommend the appointments and council all votes as a body.
Mhm.
It might be worded a little bit differently, but it's basically that. And I don't know, that's a good question, Terry. I don't know if anybody's ever suggested that individuals on boards who are currently seated. I will have to say, playing devil's advocate, because I'm good at that. That could also go kind of not so great.
Mhm.
Because
Well,
then you,
Yeah,
what's that?
Yeah, I've heard comments both ways that, well, the council should choose because advisory board members may be biased or have friends. Well, that goes both ways. Council could also have friends be biased. So that's kind of a wash. Because
You're
we're just
right.
dealing with people. We're just dealing with people. And everybody has friends, everybody knows somebody. So
Yeah.
I just thought that you've got people on advisory group who have the skills in that area, so they probably are aware of a few things they're looking for, more so maybe than some council members. That's not to denigrate council members.
No, right. I agree. I think it's a really good conversation.
Mhm.
Brenna, have you ever seen other cities doing it differently or?
I don't think so, to my knowledge, and I'm fairly new with how the community advisory groups sort of work and operate and the rules around them. What I have seen, though, kind of like more like a job application or so, where they are list specific criteria for things that they're either looking for or hope to find, or strongly encourage people with certain type of background or skill set to apply. But I mean, that's not necessarily candidate screening. It's just more kind of structuring or tailoring
Yeah.
who you'd like to find. So I think it's a great question, and I think at least some sort of, hey, here's maybe our options, so you can kind of, I guess, get an idea of who council may be reviewing in their final rounds. So at least there's a little more transparency or something. But yeah.
Yes.
Well,
I
see,
found,
or
sorry,
just
go ahead.
like if nothing else, making a recommendation that council go to the advisory boards to ask for their thoughts about the kind of people that they're really interested in appointing, in terms of the kind of criteria that Brennan was suggesting, but also thinking about gaps that could be potentially filled, in the same way that boards normally look for people with a variety of different skill sets and are kind of interested in finding, like, if they're missing somebody who has kind of experience with foundations, bringing those folks on, or you need a lawyer, bringing a lawyer, actively going out and looking for a lawyer. So it might be, something that we could potentially do as well. And it seems also that if we are aware of people who may or may not be friends who are kind of knowledgeable about the topic, seeing like whether or not it would be wise to, potentially nominate those folks too.
Yeah, I agree. I actually recommended a person who was very interested, and she used to be the director of the local Sierra Club chapter. Just got a new job working with another nonprofit organization. I emailed the city council about her, just put in a plug, but I think for various reasons she didn't apply. Probably the new job was.
Yeah.
I see there's probably no problem with any of us, contacting council with recommendations of someone who, Greg, I think that's a good point. If we see there's a gap in skill set on a certain group, I think that's a good idea. If we found someone who might fill that, make a recommendation to council. I think that's perfectly appropriate.
Yeah, I don't have any particular idea about what's the best way to do it. I agree that it's a good conversation to have, and um it seems logical to talk to the advisory board current members about, but then again, there may be downsides that I'm just not thinking of for involving multiple people with the whole application process. Because then if someone doesn't make it, then, maybe it could be seen as favoritism toward someone else. I don't know. I don't know. I can say that I was so excited about all of the super qualified people that were applying to all these boards, actually. And I was just really excited.
That's great.
It's great to hear.
Excellent. Well, I was extremely excited that Mike and Greg were re-enlisted for this group. So and after speaking with two new folks, I have high hope. Okay, well, I don't want to belabor that point anymore. But so getting back to the annual report, does everyone feel comfortable with that?
Yeah.
Okay.
I have one little comment on it. There are two goal threes under the council goal settings.
I put that there, Mike, just so you'd catch it.
I spent my days looking at little minutia on Word
Yeah,
documents and spreadsheets, so I'll find these things.
no, that's great. I love it. Okay, I'll fix it right now. Okay. Excellent. So that, the deed is done. So, Brenna, are you the one then that will submit this to council?
Yes, if you could email that to me, I too will just kind of look it over, and if there's anything I feel like maybe needs to be changed, like grammar wise or whatever, I won't try to make too many errors, or changes, sorry, not errors. Definitely try not to make errors.
Yeah.
But Terry, I will let you know what those are. And then I will forward them on to Dylan Digby. And if there's anything that he needs related to them, I will let you know.
Okay, sounds great. Okay, well, thanks all for reviewing that stuff. That's great. So leads us to topic 9, which is staff liaison update.
Oh, my turn.
You got the floor, Brenna.
Yeah. My goodness, now I actually just kind of had the miss here. But anyway, yeah, so I just, as we kind of mentioned before, I am transitioning to be the staff liaison. So just getting up to speed with everything related to that role and supporting this group. And I think, the work that you all are doing is so well needed. And I feel that there's such a breadth of education and knowledge and awareness and experience in this group that you guys are really a great group of folks to be liaising with. So I really appreciate my role and that opportunity there. My goodness, I had some stuff like totally like, so what I was also kind of hearing, I think, in expanding on our PGE sort of related discussions is also incorporating some type of tool exchange activity, possibly, or some other type of event, maybe in the spring/summertime for the community. I guess I can pitch to them and see what they may be able to do. And then report back to you all so that you can make a selection if that's something that you're interested in. And now I'm remembering. I also wanted to let you know about participating with the Clackamas County. They have a group of cities who are kind of collaborating together. They're passing along the updates from the county's climate action plan process and then allowing the cities to discuss and weigh in, not necessarily to provide feedback, but just to be aware of the county's process and what they're discussing. So I'm not sure if you all are sort of staying up to date with that. But essentially the first little bit of those meetings, they were getting everyone up to speed, including the youth advisory groups, so that everyone is familiar with the same terminology and sort of the same goalposts. So that way they could bring their industry sort of experience, expertise, and their passion to really be centered around what it is that they're discussing and the metrics that they were going to be developing. And then from there, they broke out into teams discussing various topics like transportation, buildings, etc. So they're still in the process of identifying and finalizing what the goals are in regards to emission reduction and setting those metrics for targets and also assigning those targets dates. The last meeting they had, they were actually having the group vote to see if the goals that they had were either too aggressive or not aggressive enough. So that way they could figure out how to flesh them out. And then the group that we participated in for the city perspective, we were presented with some of that information, but then also Milwaukee joined, and they talked about the formation of the process, so that us cities could be developing our own sort of framework and metrics to sort of be implementing or visioning a similar climate action plan, so that we're all either driving to the same goals or contributing to ones that maybe the county has already identified as their goals. So some of that being like building emissions reductions. And then we also talked about, from the city perspective, focusing on what is within the capacity and capability of the city, recognizing that we might not have a direct impact to, expand transportation or implement, green, more sustainable, more fuel efficient transportation methods and options, but really sort of looking at, is it more tree canopy that we could be focusing on as being part of the city's goals and contributions towards the broader climate action plan. So that is kind of where we were at, waiting to see what both groups are going to sort of start manifesting. And I think it's really important to the, in alignment with the county's work, that we start focusing on what our city is doing to help support, and maybe to modifying the format and plan so that we could be in alignment with that. We're also, as part of my other groups that I work with from the county, I meet with all of the emergency managers from the cities, but also special districts. And we talk about our emergency operations plan updates, but also our natural hazard mitigation plan updates. And that is actually going to be starting to be updated in September of next year. In some of our initial discussions, we've evaluated the top 10 natural hazards that are going to be impacting our region, their potential for happening, and then also sort of the magnitude of impact that they're going to have on our region. And within the top 5, a majority of them are all related to climate change. And a majority of them we've all actually recently gone through in the past almost 2 years now. So and some of those items were actually kind of at number 9 or number 10 in the list, and now they're bumped up to the top 5. So we're really looking at facing some critical regional impacts due to climate change, and how we go about implementing that awareness and that mitigation into the work that we do. Now we're seeing that it's more important, but then also for our emergency planning, that we need to have plans and responses that address things like the smoke, the heat, the extreme winter events, etc. So it's interesting to see that sort of coalescing and coming together. And it's just kind of always staying in the back of my mind now that we've gone through some of these things. And yeah, I feel like it's just really important to kind of share as I can that, we are living these experiences now. So in regards to some of the other projects, I think we touched on the utility usage information. We still have 2 buildings, I believe, outstanding for the Leaders in Sustainability certification. So I will be following up with you all on those. And I think that was the last of my items, I think, that I was working on, unless you all feel that I'm still owing something.
I've got a question. After DEQ decided that they were not going to invest in sequestration recommendations like from the Global Warming Committee, I'm just wondering whether there's anything that could be done at the county level to begin demonstrating to the state as a whole the value of kind of making sequestration a much higher priority than the DEQ has chosen to make it. particularly just given the nature of Clackamas County and the, you know, the forests that we've got and the amount of agricultural industry that we've got here. It seems like if there was some way to encourage people in those industries to begin really looking at the impact that they could make on reducing the total amount of carbon in the atmosphere, that would be really helpful. But I'm fearful because of DEQ's decision that folks at the county level won't even kind of pay it much heed. Do you have any sense about that in terms of, I don't know whether you sit on the Climate Action Plan group, but I'm just curious about whether there's anything that maybe that we could do just to encourage people to actually kind of attend to that. I was really deeply disappointed that DEQ made the decision that they did.
Yes, it has been part of their conversation and discussion and their evaluation. And I say that because they're realizing that they are one player as well as all of the other industries. And that was also part of their analysis as well. I'll have to see if I can ask one of their staffers if I can share their slideshow deck that they presented to us with you, because there was that analysis of here's all of the industries and here's all of the sort of emissions that are related with them. And so that was kind of how they established where they would have some of those targets. But I will ask them for their official sort of input and perspective, and then if I can share those slides as well, because I think they're really informative. And it also will inform the approach that they're initially taking right now.
Good. Thank you.
I thought, not a question really. I have a friend who is on that Climate Action Plan committee for Clackamas County. And she lives in West Linn. And she could, if people would like, she could come to a meeting and answer some of these questions. And I was also thinking a couple of things while you guys were talking. I've been attending recently some regional transportation meetings, and mostly a topic of conversation is the coming tolling on I-205 and the expansion project. And a lot of climate activists are coming to give public comment about this project to these transportation groups and decision-making bodies. And it just makes me wonder if West Linn, if it's on West Linn's radar and whose radar it would be on. Maybe would any of you be interested in kind of looking into this or organizing around it? I feel like it's going to impact West Linn directly for one thing, but of course, increasing traffic on the roads and cars. I mean, they're saying, well, they'll all be electric, so it's not going to be an increase in pollution.
What produces the electricity?
Right. I mean, don't look over there. That's, yeah. But anyway, that's just a thought I was having.
Hey, well, that's great. I appreciate your report, Brenna. It's uplifting. It's going to be plenty for us to get involved in. I'm sure about that. So any other questions for Brenna or any comments on what she had to say? Okay. The last item on the agenda is something we've spoken about the last couple of meetings, and what it is that I guess this would be for Mary, since you would be the one at council meetings to report on what happened at our meeting. And we thought that it would be a good idea to give you kind of just a little bulleted summary of what we discussed in the meeting, so that you would have that in front of you, so you wouldn't have to kind of, remember things. Kind of like a little cheat sheet or clip notes.
I mean, yeah, basically just give me what you want me to report on, and that's awesome.
Yeah, and it would just be little summaries of what we talked about, so that.
Do you want to send it to me later or tell me now?
Yeah,
or
I can just pull out the guts of each little topic and send it to you, and then at least you got something to work with, and you can edit at your heart's content. But at least you'll have something in front of you. That sound reasonable?
Sure. Yes,
Okay.
I mean, I usually just go off my notes, but
Yeah.
anything you want to send me is great.
Okay, we'll do it. Do it. Okay, well, um, that was the last item on the agenda before we take a break to the next year. Anything else anybody has to discuss or mention before we adjourn? Mike,
You too. Go ahead, Mike.
Well, I was thinking along the lines of, I know that, we've been putting together these sustainability education series. I'm wondering if there's the possibility of, say, the city putting together, some sort of welcome packet for new residents and say distributing that to them when they register for a new water service account or something. I know that my wife works for the Lake Oswego Library, and they're discussing ways to partner with different parts of the city government to kind of like let people who move there get a little bit of information about the library services. And I'm wondering if we might, pursue some sort of similar thing where people get a welcome packet that says, here are the, you can sign up through PGE to get this renewable energy portfolio. We have community gardens here and here and here. And, just kind of folding together some of the more important, just, things that we might want to share with people who are moving to the area, um, just to get them set up well when they arrive here.
Yeah, the Soil and Water Conservation District has a lot of outreach educational materials that would be great for that sort of thing.
And I was just interested in getting a couple of items on future agendas for discussion. One is the one that I mentioned at our last meeting with regard to whether or not the city could potentially take a clearer role in trying to protect the banks of the Willamette from the falls up through the mouth of the Tualatin, or as far as whatever the city boundaries are, in the way that both Milwaukee and Portland have taken steps to govern the use of wakeboard boats. Because I really have seen very clear damage from the wakeboard boats on this stretch of the river, and because of the fact that it's becoming the only place the wakeboard boats can go in the region to, in fact, operate, it means that we're getting an excessive number of the biggest boats you can possibly put on the river in this 3-mile section. And so it's a really kind of critical natural resource for the city. And to have it jeopardized in this way seems problematic. So it seems like it would be, given what both Milwaukee and Portland have done, it seems completely legitimate for West Linn to really look at this issue in a more serious way. I know it's very politically contentious, but that shouldn't necessarily stop us. And the other thing is just kind of more directly related to my own neighborhood. In like a new house was built adjoining the wetlands, but on the floodplain, and 50 additional dump truck loads of soil were brought to the site for when the house was built. And the way in which the city basically allowed that to happen was that it figured it could take soil from another section of property owned by the same builder and remove soil from there. So 50 truckloads of soil were removed from the area that's on the floodplain, but not yet the wetlands, behind my property and the property of 3 other neighbors. And what has resulted is a pond now that's about 2.5 feet deep, right next to the home of one of the property owners off of 9th Street. And Darren had come down. Neighbors had raised some real concerns about it, and Darren and the builder came, and on the morning that the excavation was supposed to happen, we only learned about the excavation on Friday before the Monday in which it occurred. That we were kind of assured that our concerns would be taken into consideration. And it turned out that kind of removing the 50 truckloads was such a huge job that they basically were not able to kind of meet our concerns and respect them. And Darren observes that one of the factors that he's dealing with is that the code kind of allows soil from one section of a property to basically be removed to make up for what was put in another section. And he felt that that in this particular area is just too problematic, and that what should in fact be required is that the code be changed so that houses that are built in areas like this are built on stilts. And so he said he was going to be working on a code shift, taking that into consideration. But I think it's the sort of thing that we could encourage him to do, and particularly given the likelihood of development further down on Volp Street, on areas that is also like on the floodplain. I think it's something that is of concern and ought to be taken into consideration again. So just sorry to talk for so long. I just needed to explain it, but two items that I think would be useful to take into consideration.
Okay, I see no reason why we can't put those on future agendas, because I agree with you, Greg. On number one, you mentioned about the wake boats. You know, we could partner initially to explore partnering with or talking with Willamette Riverkeeper, Travis Williams, because he is a Westland resident, and they have been directly involved in the Newburgh Pool issue with wakeboard boats and legislation related to that. So he would be a really good resource to get into the discussion with, see how if we can move that issue forward.
Good.
I was also a witness to some of those discussions in Milwaukee regarding extending the no wake zone.
Mhm.
I believe it was actually at the state board level, and they had made a recommendation that actually stopped just short of Milwaukee. And the Parks and Recreation Board was actually trying to petition them to extend it. So I can follow up with some of my counterparts there to get a status update, and just make sure we have the right entities involved and see how they went about pursuing that as well. So we can talk with the same folks.
Right. Yeah, because all the city can really do, I think, is make recommendations and take a position. But it is really the state Marine Board that makes the decision ultimately. So, but I think it's helpful to have the decision and the support for it. So,
Okay. Very good. So any final comments from the crew? Okay, well,